Kia ora koutou, katoa, e ho mā, no mai, hara mai, ki te papatakaro or StayMe always YouTube. Bringing it to you organic, live and dynamic. Now bring me your cups and let's dip into the healing well. Here we go. Boa tarde, buenos tardes, bonsoir, mi amiga, and my fellow divergent, Anne, the accountability expert. How are you?
Bonjour, je vais super bien. I am super good. How are you?
I'm amazing. I must admit, I do need to work on that pronunciation, but I will get it. I swear, I will get it one day. Konnichiwa, Tizi Tesu, aka Tizi created my Tomodachi music magnate and mind miner. How are you? Might need you unmute.
My bad. Konnichiwa, tomodachi. Hajimemashite. Dozo yoroshiku.
Hey, look, and before we get started, what I do want to do is just acknowledge Tizi with his EP, Spiritual Healing, that dropped on the 31st of July. And I just want to say you had some amazing accolades come out of it. Do you want to share with us a bit of background and what that actually means?
Look, just keep it humble. So grateful for the appraisal that it's been given thus far, especially being an unknown artist here in New Zealand, and then obviously to some major parts of the world. But yeah, we've got 2 stars, and so those 2 tracks in particular are charting on US iTunes. So yeah, just very blessed and fortunate, and just keeping it humble.
Fantastic. So if anyone wants to have a listen, where do they need to go to check out your tracks?
So it's all over most social media platforms. So if you post a reel or IGTV or story, just choose the music icon, and then you can look me up, TZ Created, and then include that in your posts. So that's on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, and yeah, you can Shazam it if you want. So yeah, just keeping it humble though. It's nice to have all of these different platforms where people can actually listen and post my music with their posts, with their reels, their stories, what have you. But yeah, just gonna stay humble.
Fantastic, awesome. So it's all about listening to our own and keep it local. So congratulations. So let's kick into it. So we're going to continue on with our part series, Thanks for the Lenses. What we are going to discuss today is cognitive dissonance. And I'm actually going to throw it to you, Anne. Do you want to give us an understanding of what cognitive dissonance actually is, what it means?
Certainly, Jamie and Tizi. So cognitive dissonance is a term from psychology, and it's actually the perception of contradictory information. So this contradictory information could be to do with actions, feelings, ideas, beliefs, values, and happenings within the environment. So when people get confused, so another big word here is ambiguity. So ambiguous communication. And this is something that's happening now in the media, in our environment, in our small community. There is a lot of misunderstanding and contradictory information. And when this happens, when you get this contradictory information, a person can get really confused, and confusion can result, because it's usually persisting for a while, it results in psychological stress. So what happens then is the person goes into some sort of overdrive in the mind. Obviously, it's the subconscious and the conscious mind that are talking to each other. And so when these 2 ideas are not aligned, this continues the stress from going. And the person will do anything and everything, as in the mind of the person, to make the, the difference in viewing things the same. So eventually they are going to just go with one thing, even if they don't agree with their values. So at university, what the professor put on the board, and I really loved that little video, and I'll never forget that, was the fox was looking up at the grapes and said, "Oh, I really would love these sweet grapes." And he's like reaching and reaching, but he can't get to the grapes. And then he says, "Ah, well, I didn't really want them anyways." And I thought that was just brilliant to summarize this, in a simple image for people.
Fabulous. It makes it a little bit easier for people to understand, absolutely. And Tazy, for yourself, just want to give us a bit of an understanding and your perception of what CD, cognitive dissonance, means for you.
CD. So for me, cognitive dissonance is a conflict between what your senses are telling you and what your already banked information is telling you, or any information that you have probably on your phone or on a device that you're reading from. So when your senses are telling you one thing, this information is telling you another thing. So for me, that's what cognitive dissonance is. And I actually did quite a huge amount of research into this particular subject because I wanted to get a real clear understanding of it. And I wrote this. I'm just reading this off my phone. So your mind is the steering wheel to your soul. Your heart is the driver of your soul. And your spirit, aka your wairua, is the engine of your soul. And so a mind without senses steers us in the wrong direction because we're allowing untested information to steer our decision making, which is why I've likened our mind to a steering wheel. Then I've also gone on to write, a mind led by our senses steers us in the right direction because our senses are a sensory system that keeps our information in check. So without our senses, information goes unchecked and untested and is especially dangerous when it's false, but we utilize it unquestioned to make our decisions. So what cognitive dissonance is our senses, aka our checkpoint, disagreeing with the information we've been given or currently have banked in our mind because that information is actually incorrect. And so that sums up cognitive dissonance.
And this is something that really affects individuals every single day. And it's now trying to understand what we can do on a daily basis to try and, help yourself, assist others to figure out how to move forward, especially when you're going through some sort of emotional or mental issues and discomfort. So why do we struggle to use our senses to guide and assist us through life, Unmi?
I believe because there is a lot of distraction in the world, and people are less and less connected to their true sense, the sixth sense, the true self, the soul, and that's all because from when the human is a baby, they're put in front of cartoons, and there is little lessons within these cartoons. So yes, it might be a mouse and a cat jumping around, and it's all really fun with a little bit of music, but there are there are hidden messages in there, and then that's how the child gets conditioned, and that's how the parents tell them certain things, and the school tells them certain things. And they learn to just function on the stories that they are told instead of listening to their gut feeling or really observing or really listening, as what we discussed in the previous episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And my daughter constantly brings to my attention a lot of instructions that I'm trying to give her. And then she questions me in terms of, yeah, but mummy, that's not how it works. So you're right. It's that conditioning, the unintentional conditioning potentially that we're doing inadvertently with our children. And like you were discussing last week, you know, that the first 7 years is so important in their lives that we need to be ensuring that we are guiding them and assisting them in the right way and giving that direction. And TZ, for you, give us a couple of examples in terms of what we can do on a daily basis to try and help we'll utilize our senses more to help us on the daily basis.
Yeah, I think we need to. I totally agree with what Anami just said. You know, it starts in the first 7 years. Those are scientific facts, and ultimately, your first 7 years will set the theme for every decision that you make based on the psychology, because ultimately that's what we're teaching our kids in the first 7 years. We're teaching them psychology. And the problem with having a whole lot of different teachers at school, a whole lot of different people, because you can raise a child in the same house, have a whole lot of different adults. They're all giving their personal opinion. The teachers are giving their personal opinion. Are they actually based on accurate information? And how do we know that this information is accurate? And that's where the senses come in. And so what's happening is children are actually being programmed out of using their senses, because they look to adults like adults have all the answers. And as we well know, adults don't have all the answers, because look at the world around us. So in terms of fine-tuning our cognitive motor skills and our fine cognitive motor skills, because that's where the senses start, I think what's the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning? You open your eyes.
Correct.
So in that order, we should be fine-tuning our senses. And then you start hearing things, and then you start smelling things. But yeah, I think there's a definite order, and it happens if you pay more attention to your senses from the moment that you wake up. You'll actually find that there's a particular order that your senses start kicking in. And then so you want to note that order down, and then you want to make sure that you're operating in those senses on a daily basis, probably all day if you can, because our senses, as we've discussed in prior shows off air, our senses, our lenses. And so our mind should follow our senses and not the other way around.
Yeah, correct. And Amy, for yourself, what sort of ways do you use your senses on a daily basis? And I suppose really for those that find it difficult, how do you bring that awareness to know when to tune in to those senses to then apply?
It's a really amazing question, and TZ, I completely agree with you, because if you wake up, and this is a proven fact, if you wake up and you step out of bed with the wrong foot, usually the rest of the day is going to be a similar experience, right? So if you start off well and you really start off in the right way, as in observing, what am I seeing, what am I hearing, what am I smelling, how am I feeling, because that's also very important.
Absolutely.
I think many people, they jump out of bed because the alarm clock rings, and most of them actually don't, because they numb themselves and confuse their brain by hitting snooze. That's the worst thing you can do for your brain, because you confuse your brain from the very beginning in the day. But another thing you can do is really observe your own behavior and say, stop running. Because we run too much, and specifically the younger generation. So they're running here, running there, and meeting after meeting after meeting, in a way to kind of like, I believe they do that to feel significant. So the busier they are, the more significant they feel. However, they kind of push their senses to the side, which is crazy, because this is how you lose touch. So self-observation, be the observer of your thoughts and your behavior, and recognize patterns, because when you do this for 5 days, I can guarantee you can take a little booklet and write your patterns down and think, oh my goodness, I'm becoming a machine,
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, everything you mentioned, Tizzy and I were just talking about that off air, and it's making sure and looking at that awareness side, but it's practice. No matter what you do, whether you are an athlete, whether you're a student, it doesn't. A mum, you've got to practice and practice and practice in order to become better, to fine tune those skills, to ensure that you're doing things the way that you want, and you're building your knowledge and your skill set. So it's about practicing using your senses, and things like indicators. So what sort of indicators should we be mindful of on a daily basis, Anmi, that we can give back to our audience, so it makes it so much easier on a day-to-day basis?
The indicators I would be looking at is your feelings and your emotions that come up, because your emotions are basically the buttons that have been pushed. And are you maintaining your emotional state, or does it spiral up or down? And you can monitor that as well. Once you feel that, I think I said that in the previous episode as well, don't get carried away with the emotion, because then you basically, swimming against stream. Just go with the stream and let it all happen. Yeah. So the indication is definitely your emotions, because that's a gift for you to. It's like a barometer to see how things are going. Is it heating up, or is it getting colder? Is it stable weather, or it's exactly like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Tazy, what do you suggest in terms of indicators that you may use? I know for me, whenever I am coaching my regional managers, and sometimes I hit a blank and I won't know what to say, but I'll say to them that there's something wrong, or there's something that needs to change, and then I actually need the time to actually understand what that looks like. So I give myself time to be able to think over the process, and I also use my gut feeling. Everyone knows about the gut feeling, and that helps me to, again, stop and think before I react, to then really find myself and become in tune with my senses. But yeah, what do you do?
Yes, so I deal a lot with a lot of esoteric information, especially with ancient manuscripts and that kind, or those nature of things. And so as a mind coach, as a mental coach, I find myself making suggestions, but I make those suggestions according to the knowledge that I have about our senses. And so what I'm actually trying to do is palpate their senses by making suggestions to them on how they can change their approach. Because as we spoke to before, we're speaking about the first 7 years and how you get psychologically programmed, and then throughout the rest of your life, if you haven't been left to your senses to develop and mature fully, then you're always going to be relying on information that you've acquired previously. And the problem with that is that information contributes to your psychology or your mind, and then your mind steers your decision making. But as I said earlier, our heart is the driver of our soul. Our spirit is the engine of our soul. So if your engine is revving and your heart, which is the emotional side, is driving that wheel, you're going to get that impetus, but you're going to get it in the wrong direction, because your mind is the steering wheel to that car. And so when I'm dealing with people, especially when I'm mind mining people, I'm actually working on unlocking their mind. And I call it mind mining because it's very similar to mining. What you're actually doing is you're drilling down into their psychology, and you're planting spiritual, emotional, and mental dynamite, so that you can explode the ground and loosen all the golden nuggets of the accurate knowledge that's in there. And then as you bring it through the crusher and then onto the conveyors, and a lot of people who are doing mining will understand all this jargon. And that's why I call it mind mining, because you're actually utilizing those analogies to unlock their minds. And I use a lot of analogies like the car one I just used to portray to people what I'm actually doing with their mental faculties. And then slowly but surely they start seeing things from different angles. You're giving them different looks, and it starts changing their psychology. But the problem is the older people are, the longer you have to spend changing those neurological ruts. And is that a bad thing? No, because people don't know this stuff. And that's what the show is about. The show is about teaching people about the senses and how the senses should be fine-tuned every day to override our minds. Our minds should follow our senses and not the other way around.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think time's probably one of the most important indicators to give yourself time to really think, understand, process, and if it means you need to go away and find that information so you're clear about what it is that you're trying to digress or understand, then by all means go ahead and do that. I was talking to a couple of girlfriends this week and I needed their help, and I just said to them, look, you know, we want to ensure that people fully understand on how they can become in tune with their senses. And how do you do that on a day-to-day basis? And like you were alluding to, on me, you get caught up in a cycle, in a rut, and you're going around, and you don't even realize that you're running on a treadmill and you're that little rat in the little cycle, running, and actually you don't see what's literally straight in front of you. And mothers, for example, and being a mum, I totally understand. Especially when you're a brand new mum, you're scared, you're frightened, you're exhilarated, it's exciting, it's amazing. Although your senses seem to kick in as soon as that baby is born. I don't know, obviously, the medical and scientific background behind that. I'm sure one of you two can jump in very shortly. But you find that you have that connection with your child as soon as that child is born. And I know for myself, you know, how many times have I gone to the doctor and taken my child and I disagree with every single thing, every single word the doctor's telling me. But as a mother, you believe them because why? They're the one with the degree. They're the one with the big tick.
Exactly.
You know, you believe them because it's ingrained in you since you were a child, because your mum or your father or your family members took you to the doctor and you go there to seek information and advice. But how many times as a mum you turn around and you've said, no, that's not correct, I'm going to do it my way, and literally almost 99.9% of the time you're correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because I had some Botox clinics when I was living back in Australia, but I knew that I already knew status doesn't mean anything. Status doesn't qualify a person's knowledge. What qualifies a person's knowledge is the clinical research that you do. And I've spoken to you about this, StayMe always, and in some instances, to lesser degrees, I've spoken to you about this sort of stuff too. I mean, that people are too trusting, man, way too trusting. And that's the problem with the world today, is we just trust whatever they feed us. Obviously, people like us don't, but everybody else does. And so that's why we have the show, and that's why we're teaching on senses, because your senses will give you cognitive dissonance when somebody is giving you information that is incorrect. And that's why you need to learn to fine-tune your senses and trust them, because they're always right.
100% I agree, honestly, because exactly what you said, we get fed so much information, specifically today, and through the media and mass media. And once your sixth sense kicks in, because exactly what Jamie said before, you know what the right thing is to do. If you're really honest to yourself, people think that this can't be right. Well, if you ask yourself that question, highly likely is something's off.
Mm-hmm.
And then the power of independent thinking needs to come in, and you need to do your own research. But then don't research in the mainstream news, because you're going to get the same news over and over and over. You need to kind of find the back door, and then start looking through the back door, and maybe go up a few levels or down a few levels to find what you are looking for. And then it will confirm that your intuition and your senses and your sixth sense was right, because we have all the answers inside of us.
Yeah, totally agree. And I was looking at a couple of other different examples. So again, people can fully understand on how to practice utilizing their senses on a day-to-day basis. That again, just coming back to, being a mum, the result that you end up taking when you take or use the information given by somebody else versus your own intuition and your own senses, the effect it can have on you as a mother, knowing that you could be placing a child into a situation that you can't get them out of, or it may harm them or hurt them, you beat yourself up. But as a mother, I have unfortunately done that, and I'm sure everybody else can totally relate. You've done this before, and you knew straight away that your sixth sense and your senses were telling you to go the opposite way. So it's the effect that your senses and failing to use your senses can have, that direct in turn effect on yourself emotionally and mentally. And we beat ourselves up every single day with the trials and tribulations of life, that we can absolutely use this to our advantage. So, how can senses literally transform our lives to make it better and more exciting, more fun and exhilarating? Anmi, what do you suggest?
Well, I just wanted to follow up on what you just said, Jamie, because you said people beat themselves up. Well, my advice is life will happen. And, unfortunately, I should actually, change that and say, fortunately, we make mistakes. Because if we didn't make mistakes, we wouldn't learn anything. And look at a movie that you're watching and, everything's good. The man has a lot of money, beautiful wife, children, house. Nothing happens. Do we want to watch something like that? Probably not. So it's the same in life, right? If nothing happens, you learn nothing. And instead of beating yourself up, in neuro-linguistic programming, we say a person always, because I work with a lot of conflict between parents and children. So children blaming parents, parents blaming their parents, blame, blame, blame. But in the end, realistically, unless the person is, a psychopath, which is 0.008% of the population, people will always do the very best with what the knowledge that they have at that point in time. And once you realize that, you can't really blame your parents or your grandparents, or so yes. So what could you repeat the question, Jamie?
So yeah, no, definitely. So how can you use your senses to transform your everyday life?
I would suggest meditation and grounding, because when you start your day with meditation, and that is just a 10-minute exercise or a 7-minute exercise, I would say in 7 minutes, you can set yourself up for the day. I call it priming. I do it.
So here we go.
Oh, good.
Just had a bit of interference there on me, so sorry. Continue.
No, so I call it priming, and it's basically.
I think we've lost on me interference there. So yeah, again, the question was how can senses trans. Sorry, Anmi, I don't know what's happening. It looks like the connection, but if you are, continue. Oh, there we go. Back online.
Awesome. So no, I was saying my suggestion to the people watching and listening. I meditate, and I know that's a very like a airy fairy word to some people, but basically what it is just sitting with yourself in the morning, priming yourself to start the day, simply by reflecting on what you've learned, where you are now, and what you want to do for the future. And when you're set up in that way, you are going to be way more attentive, way more mindful, way more aware when you go through the day, simply by sitting with yourself in silence, breathing, and just being for 7 minutes before you start your day. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree too. And I must admit, I do that. I'm doing that a lot more often now. I'm finding that as my children get older, they create a little bit more stress, make me cray-cray, a little bit crazy, but that's okay. I'll get there. But obviously my life is becoming a lot busier, so I'm trying to learn how to become a lot more relaxed and not be so caught up and stressed. So, you know, I totally agree with meditation and utilizing and doing that on a daily basis. I suppose also, you know, looking at the types of practices that we can do on a daily basis to understand how to utilize our senses even further would be something simple as, again, going back to mums, when you are running your child a bath, it's literally, instead of using implements, tools. And I think that's also another reason too why we fail to really utilize our senses, is because we're expecting to utilize something else. Like information, or in this case, a thermometer to understand how hot that bath is. Touch, simply use your elbow, use your fingers. You know, it makes absolute sense, because at the end of the day, I would hate to think that that thermometer was broken and you put your child in the bath and then obviously it's a lot hotter than you initially expected. Things like recipes and cooking. Instead of utilizing a recipe, utilize your taste buds to understand whether you need a little bit more salt, a little bit more pepper, a little bit more spice. And these are the things you can do on a day-to-day basis to help you to become even more in tune. And absolutely, awareness is massive. It's something that unfortunately we don't do. And again, it comes back to that busy life and being on that treadmill and just continuously going around in circles. I don't know if there's anything else that you could suggest, me, or that you want to add.
Well, when you were talking about the bath, I was thinking, involve your children more in what you do, and don't treat them like little children, because when you are cooking, for example, let them, okay, maybe don't give them a knife, but let them do things, let them feel textures, talk to them. What is it? Because we really want to instill these qualities in our children, because we never know when there is no Uber Eats available and they will have to cook their own food, right? You never know what's going to happen. So it's always good to have knowledge of how to cook simple food, and doing that together as a family, or as a mom and child, or even involve the father in it, you know, do it as a family. It's a fun activity, and you communicate and you really connect. And you use your senses. You can taste it raw. You can taste it when it's cooked. It's different. So the child understands that a meal also, you will get more appreciation, because a meal doesn't just jump in a plate on the table. So the child can see, oh wow, my mom has really, you know, put a lot of effort and energy into this to do this for me. So that the aspect of gratitude will change as well within the family.
Yeah, absolutely, and I totally agree. And it looks as though Teezy's unfortunately had some technical difficulties, but that's okay. But look, I just want to say thank you so much for jumping on the show again, Anmi. As usual, everything that you've brought to the table is imperative and really helps the audience to understand exactly what they can do on a day-to-day basis, and also the knowledge and the understanding behind exactly what we're talking about. So yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Jamie. It was an absolute pleasure being here, always.
No problem. And your tell us just really quickly before we tune off and close off for the evening. Just tell us a little bit more about your business in Australia there.
Well, my company is called Accountability Expert, and that's exactly, I've chosen that name because it really is what the title, what it's called. I believe many people have issues in life because they are not accountable. And what is accountability? It's basically a combination of responsibility and integrity. So responsibility for doing something because you are a leader, you lead yourself, and integrity because you say something and you're actually also going to follow through and do what you said that you were going to do. So what I do is I help people, they have a goal, and I help them reach that goal. That seems very simple, but it really works. And it's simply by creating the confidence within them so that they can see the issue that they have or the problem through a different lens. and they can actually see multiple solutions to their problem.
Oh, fantastic. And are you on all social platforms?
I am on Instagram it's actually under @accountability expert. I'm also on Facebook. It's also called Accountability Expert. There is a business page. There is also my private page, and I have a group as well if you want to join that. The group is called the Transformation Tribe.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. So if you're interested, absolutely jump on those social platforms. And me was just giving us insight too. And really quickly, before we finish for the evening, jump on the StayMe Always YouTube channel where you can watch our past and up and coming shows. And oh, Tasi's just arrived in the house. So just a question for you, Tasi. How can senses transform your everyday life? And can you give some suggestions in terms of how our audience can apply those senses to help them?
Yeah. So for me, I focus on the senses that help my gifting. So for example, I have a gifting for music. So naturally, the first sense that's going to kick in there is my hearing. And so when I wake up every morning, I don't actually open my eyes first. I let my ears tune into the sounds all around me. And so over the years, that has augmented my hearing ability to where if I'm in the bush, no matter where I am, if I'm in the ground doing underground excursions, if I'm underwater, submerged, I can actually hear sonics and phonics that most people can't hear. And so that's why I create the music that I do without sounding arrogant. It's just because I can hear frequencies, because I've tuned my ear into hearing all these subsonic frequencies, frequencies above 5K, 7K, 8K, from mixing sound, mixing my music, and then mastering it. And so over the years, I've developed that. And then obviously in my later life, learning about resonant frequency and vibration, because those two are one and the same. And so that affects who I choose to let into my cosmos, my personal cosmos, because your vibration has to align. And so all your people in your clique, if I'm not hearing and therefore feeling their vibration, that's what people talk about, good vibes. And that, what does good vibes actually mean? Well, that's what it means. It's when your vibration aligns with somebody else. Yeah, and so those are the things that I fine tune.
Fabulous. And I know I've spoken to you before in regards to your amazing gift with music, and obviously, as you stated just now, being a music producer. How can you use your senses? And you can absolutely go back to what you did when you recognised that you had a gift for music. What suggestion can you give parents, friends, those that are wanting to help their children, especially to develop those gifts from such a young age?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is not placing, as an adult, placing our psychological limitations on children. Because then what we're doing is we're actually programming them out of actually fine-tuning and using their senses. And it's a problem with adults, because as we get older, we go along through life, we end up with all these filters, and they're psychological filters. And so what they actually do is they filter out information. And unfortunately, filters are the opposite to senses, because senses, if you use your senses, they let information in. So you're getting a quasi-quagmire, if you like, of different sets of information that when they come together, they conflict with each other. And so there's cognitive dissonance. So what we actually need to do is create environments where our children, right from infancy, they can use their senses in every way, shape, and form, and continue to place pragmatic skill-based activities in their cosmos so that they can continue to fine-tune their senses.
Absolutely, and I totally agree. And as a parent, unfortunately, without realizing, you do end up placing those restrictions on your children, and it's purely because you don't want them to get hurt, or you see that they're struggling, so you interject and you step in to try and help them. But obviously, as you stated, it actually is hindering them to understand how to use their senses to be able to apply to expand and work on that gift. So yeah, I totally absolutely agree with you. But TZ, just let audience know where they can get your amazing music.
As I was saying earlier in the show, and thank you for having me on the show again, appreciate you valuing my input. So in terms of music, you can look me up on Insta. You're doing your reels, when you're posting reels, posting IGTV, posting a story, you just go and click on that music icon, and then you can go in and search for TZ Created. So that was good branding. Amazing team, because we differentiated ourselves from every other TZ that's online. Because there's a whole lot of TZs, but there's only one TZ Created. So yeah, amazing job to our team. And then obviously what's happening in the follow-on with that, because I think the way that we distinguished ourselves with the brand is having a direct effect on two particular charts on the US iTunes. So yeah, just look up TZ Created on all major platforms: Instagram, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon. Let's keep the ball rolling, and let's keep the healing ball rolling.
Fantastic. And I know you've got some new music that will be coming out, and potentially an album or possibly an EP that will drop probably in the next couple of months. So I look forward to listening to your next round of music. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Most welcome. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And to everybody out there, if you have anybody at all that needs some form of direction, needs some guidance, needs some help and support, obviously myself, TZ and Anmi are absolutely here in every way, shape or form. If you've got any questions or queries, please send us a message either through our social platforms, and we'd be more than happy to answer them. But what I'd love you to do is actually share and send and forward the shows onto your friends and your family and those that you feel are in need of support and help. Hence why we're here. We are a show that focuses on wellness, emotional wellness and mental wellbeing. So please tune in, go to StayMe Always, my YouTube channel, and we will be coming back to you same time next week, 11 o'clock Saturday, and tune in and we will be talking about the sixth sense. Have a great evening and we'll see you then. Bye.